Right guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm just going to be showing you how to install a Rotor PressFit 4624 bottom bracket. So this bottom bracket fits a BB386 Evo bottom bracket shell. So if you want to run the Shimano cranks with the 24mm axle and you're looking for a 386 Evo bottom bracket, then I'll go ahead, I'll show you how to install it. Right, so here we have the bottom bracket kit. So I'll just get it out of the box and show you what's in it. Obviously you've got the bottom bracket itself, you can see PressFit bottom bracket there, and then you get various spacers in there as well. Like so, so I'll get onto those later on when we're actually fitting it. But it depends what application you're putting it in, to what spaces you'll require. See there you've got the bottom bracket itself. These have got the steel ball bearings in them. You can get the ones with the ceramic bearings, so it's the same process for fitting them. So let's go ahead, let's get this fitted. Right, so we have the bottom bracket shell. This is going straight into a carbon shell, as you see. Now you can either put grease around it when you put them in, or you can Loctite it in. It's entirely up to you. They do recommend Loctiting them in place with these shells, because what you find is with the aluminium style cups into a carbon shell, they can creak more than say the resin versions of manufacturers' bottom brackets. You can find that, like I said, these aluminium ones creak more into a carbon shell. So it's entirely up to you if you want to grease it, round it, or push it in dry. But like I said, they recommend Loctiting these in. So if you want to Loctite it in, make sure that you thoroughly cleaned it with some alcohol cleaner. Wipe it all round thoroughly, making sure that it is clean, especially if it's going into a used frame. Make sure it's all cleaned up. Then you can get the activator of what you would spray on first and let that evaporate off. And then what you want to be doing is using something like a Loctite. This is like a 641 retaining compound. This is, like I said, medium strength one. You don't want anything that's going to be putting it in permanently, so it's going to be extremely hard to remove at a later date if it is creaking for any reason. So you want like a medium strength compound or lower. You don't want to be putting in there and it's stuck in there permanently. So you can Loctite them in if you know your bottom bracket shell is slightly out of shape, like many of them are with the manufacturing tolerances. You could always, if you think it is, you could just hold the cup up, put the cup in. They'll go in to start with easily, because it's got, this is narrower here, and then it steps up wider as it gets into this area. But if you just put that in there like that and hold it in place, then all you got to do is look from the opposite side and see if you can see any daylight around it when it's held in there tight like that. So you can see with a torch, or you should be able to see the light coming round. If it's out of shape slightly, then the best thing to do then is definitely use some Loctite around it on both surfaces and then press it in. So that's up to you if you want to do that or not. I'm not saying don't do it, but you can do it, or you can put some grease around it. It's all personal preference. There's no right or wrong. Some people Loctite it in, it'll creak. Some people put grease on it, it'll creak. So you just do whatever you think's best. So what I always do is, you got the cups and the centre part, plastic part in the middle there. So what I do is pull these apart, and then what I'll do is I'll just put some grease on the O-ring around there, so it just helps it slide together easily. Do that on both O-rings, so do that on both sides. Put some on there like that, and then with the cup I'll just put a bit around the inside of there as well, like that. So it wouldn't matter if you're Loctiting this in, because you only want Loctite on this portion here, so just on that edge there. This edge isn't actually making contact at all with the inside of the bottom bracket shell, it's only the outside there that is. So just put some grease on both of those on the inside there, around there, like that. Now with these, the bearing is just behind this rubber seal here. So if you flick that off, you see the bearing behind there, it's just sat in there. So what we do then is, like I said, you can Loctite it in or you can put grease on it. Now I'm going to put a smear of grease on this, and then if it has a problem with it creaking further down the line, then you can clean it all up and then Loctite it in. So I'd rather put grease on it to start with, and if there's a problem then I'll Loctite it in at a later date. So I'll go ahead, I'll get some grease on the bottom bracket and the shell, and then we'll press it in. So what I've done is I've just wiped a thin layer of grease around the inside of the shell there. Now if you're doing this, what you want to make sure is you've got some lithium grease, based grease, so it's carbon friendly, or just look for a carbon friendly grease to make sure that it doesn't do any damage to the layup of the carbon. And then, like I said, with the cups, what I want to do is put some grease around the outside of them. So I'll just grease around there like that on each one. The cups are both the same, so they're not handed or anything. So what we'll do is put grease around there like that. And then once we've done that, I'll just get one of the cups, and then with the plastic piece that went in the middle that we had earlier on, then slide that into there like so. So it's just sitting in there like that. And then what we want to do is put this into the frame. So we start it off just putting in by hand. So making sure that there's nothing in the way inside the frame. When you're putting it in, make sure it's not getting interfered with inside, so it can go straight through. And we just sit that in place like that. Then we get the opposite side cup, and we sit that in. Like I said, you can push them in so far and then they'll just seat themselves in there. If you've got anything in the way inside the frame, make sure that it's right out of the way before you start pressing it in. So now we've got those just sat in position there. Make sure they're going in straight, you're not pushing them in crooked. And then what you want to do is get yourself a press. So this is two of these, so this is for a BB386, so when you put it on there it's not actually pressing on where the bearing is at all, it's just sat on there and the force is being put on the outside edge of the bottom bracket, not where the bearing is. So we get two of those and then we'll go ahead and press it in place. Right, so we got the tool in place now, so what we'll do is get this wound on to start it. So So we've got the presses there, a couple of washers, and then the handles. Just get that nipped up till it stops moving. Make sure it's going in straight. It's just a case of pressing it in a bit at a time. So as soon as it stops moving, then that's it installed. Won't go in any more than that. So once it's in there, then just back the tool off. If you Loctite it in, then you would just leave it for the recommended amount of time for the Loctite to cure before you carried on any further. Just back the tool all the way off and get it removed. Right, so we're fitting a Shimano crank to this bottom bracket. So like I mentioned earlier, it comes with spacers for the bottom bracket when you're using a Shimano crank. What you got to remember is obviously not to space it too wide, because if you did, for instance, when you put the crank arm on, you can see when it's fully on there like that, if you remove it, you could just see a line where it was on there, so how far it actually goes on to the splines. So therefore if you space it too far, then it's not going to be on the splines enough. It's got to be properly fitted onto the splines like so. If it's spaced out too wide, then it's just going to be sitting on the edge of them. It's not going to be properly installed. So you have to just bear that in mind when you're spacing it. So let's go ahead, let's get this fitted, and I'll just show you the spacers we're using. Right, so when it comes to spacing the crank out, so there's no play in it, obviously like I said, it comes with various spacers in the bottom bracket kit. So what you need to do is I've just slid the axle through there like that with no spacers on it at all, just to show you. Now with the left hand crank arm, there's just a line on there where when you slide that crank arm on and it's done up, it'll stop on that line there, if you can make that out or not. So if you've got the spacers, say I'll just put these two on just to show you. So you put those two on like that. Obviously you wouldn't be putting them on here, I'm just demonstrating this. So you put it on like that and you can see that they're underneath that line that's been left on the end of the axle there. So they're underneath that line, so when that's done up, that wouldn't be tight enough, so you'd have play if you got hold of the arm and rocked it when the nut's done up on the end for the bearing adjustment. You still have play in the arm, so those wouldn't be enough. So it's clear that those ones aren't the right ones. So the two largest ones it comes with are these. So if you put them on there, just demonstrating, put them on there, they're exactly on that line. So you know that when that crank arm goes on, it's going to stop right in the right place. So then you know that's correct. Then what you do is you put your, I'll take this back out and I'll put one on the other side and one on this side. So we've removed the crank now. So what I'll do is I'll just put some grease around there like that and over the axle itself. Slide on one of the spacers onto there like that, and remember put some grease over the actual axle itself like that before you slide it through. Then we put that back through. Then we do the left hand crank arm. So we've got the axle slid back through with the spacer on this side, and then we put the spacer there, as you can see, on this side. So effectively there's two 2.5mm spacers, so it's like 5mm of spacing altogether. So we'll refit the arm on there. And just do up the nut on the end just till it stops moving. That's plenty. Don't want to over tighten it. So then it's a case of doing up your two 5mm hex heads there. Push down your tab before you do them up. Then we'll do those up, torque them up, and then what you got to do then is just check for movement in the arm by rocking it backwards and forwards. Make sure you've eliminated any play. Right, so now we've got the arm installed. What you want to do then is just obviously get hold of the arm and rock it backwards and forwards like that, applying plenty of pressure on it. Make sure you can't feel any play in it at all, like that. So once that's done, then that's the installation complete. So I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more cycle related content. Till next one, ride safe and I'll see you then.